Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning to people that have just joined. We are just waiting another minute and then we will start. Okay, it's 9:34, so I think I can start. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining this training today. My name is Cristina Di Maria. I'm a research project manager at UNI, and I take care of coordinating the participation of UNI, the Italian standards body, in European projects. I'm just sharing my screen with a very brief introduction for today's event. Okay, perfect. This event, navigating the CSR directive, leveraging voluntary sustainability standards and research to strengthen bio-based industry reporting, has been developed in order to allow, especially all the bio-based industries and researchers working on these topics, to delve into the latest developments related to sustainability reporting and matching these developments with the tools developed within research and innovation projects. In particular, this event has been organized by the STAR4BBS project, which I will introduce you in a while, and the Engage for Bio project with the important support of Success4Bio-based project. The agenda for today is starting with understanding the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, and there will be Giacomo Riccio from UNI and Massimo Chiocchia from CISE to explain you the main developments of this legislation. Then we will dive into the research results from STAR4BBS project with Sofia from the Universidade de Santiago de Compostela, and afterwards the skills and some educating tools developed by Engage for Bio project by the Metropolia University with Dr. Rita Leighton. Finally, we will close this meeting with a discussion with experts in the field, which will be moderated by Dr. Luana Ladu from the TU Berlin University. And we will close the meeting with the final remarks where you can access the slides, the recording of this event, etc. Okay. So first of all, just a very, very brief introduction on the projects which have worked for the organization of this event. STAR4BBS, which stands for Sustainability Transition Assessment Rules for Bio-Based System, it's an Horizon Europe project which started in September 2022 and which is now the last year of its development. It indeed will end on the 31st of August 2025. It is a project which has been financed under the call for international and new sustainability certification schemes for bio-based systems and which was developed in order to answer to the issue of lack of transparency and harmonization for certification schemes in the background of the development of the Green Claims Directive proposal. This project sees the participation of many partners, as you can see here in the map. They are from Germany, Italy, Spain, United Kingdom, Netherlands, Switzerland, and Greece. We as UNI are one of the partners of this amazing project, and today there is also APRE, which is leading the dissemination and communication activity of this project, and also the coordinator, which is TU Berlin, which will also moderate the final discussion. The main aim of this project is to maximize the potential of the sustainability certification schemes endeavors with the aim of supporting the transition to a more sustainable bio-based economy. And to this end, the project is developing an assessment tool to understand and evaluate the different certification schemes on the market. The main objectives of the project are indeed, first of all, analyzing the existing certification schemes, evaluation of global trade flows, development of indicators and monitoring system, understanding the impact of these certification schemes, and developing policy recommendations for the adoption of future more robust certification schemes. Many deliverables have already been developed, and the public ones can be found on the project website. The second project, which has a lot collaborating for developing this training, is Engage for Bio, which stands for Better Understanding, Intensified Engagement Training and Development in Regional Bio-Based Systems. This project is as well an Horizon Europe project and started in October 2022, and it is at the last year ending in September 2025. The background of this project is basically the consciousness that the European Commission is promoting a sustainable regional development through bioeconomy-related strategies across the EU. Indeed, as you can see from the map, different regions are participating to this project, and the main aim is to strengthen circular sustainable bioeconomy and sustainable regional development through the engaging of quadruple helix actors from 5 regional bio-based systems, what they call hubs, in processes of design thinking, co-creation, and retraining in skills development. And you will learn more on this by Rita in the second part of this event. The 5 hubs of this project are the first in Austria, related to the construction sector. The second one is in Finland, and Metropolia University is here representing this, and it is related to sustainable packaging. The third one is in Hungary on agriculture and food industry. Then there are the Netherlands with circular and bio-based textiles, and finally blue economy in Italy. The impacts which this project focused on are, first of all, understanding the regional systems, creating innovation governance models, work with future visions and pathways, developing training and skills and awareness on for the professionals, and then upscaling these models through communication, dissemination, and exploitation. This was a very, very brief introduction on the project, just to give you a little bit of background of why we're here. But I don't want to waste too much time on this introductory part. I will leave the floor to my colleague Giacomo for his presentation on the CSRD. Thank you, Giacomo.
Thank you, Christina. I'll actually ask Massimo to share his slide, because we'll start from Massimo's presentation, and then I will address mine. First of all, thank you everybody again for being here. Massimo and I will be addressing CSRD, ESRS standards and data points, and then especially how standardization is coming in handy in this case, given the omnibus package proposal. I can see Massimo is sharing the slide right now. So today we will address with Massimo the passage from the NFRD to the CSRD, and then address also how the data points in the ESRS have been elaborated and drafted, and how to use the EFRIC standards. And then we'll try to understand how what's going on with the omnibus package, what the hell is going on with the omnibus package proposal, and then how standards are going to save your day. Hopefully. So that's enough from my side. I'll leave the floor to Massimo, and thank you very much for your attention.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Sorry for my voice. It's not a good time for me today, but I hope you can hear me. So as Giacomo said, this will be a small presentation about the general feature of the CSC directive and a general view about the ESRS standard that was strictly linked to the CSRD directive. I have to, my speech will be divided just in these 2 parts. The first one will be a general plot about the CSRD main feature that, as Giacomo said, for main part could be outdated, because at the end of February, European Commission issued the new omnibus package that slightly change the situation and the plot. So I will indicate during my speech what issues have been heavily affected about this change, and I suppose that Giacomo, after in his speech, will explain how these changes affect all the plot. The second part will be a general view about the EFRAG standard ESRS, but only a general plot. So maybe some of you will be disappointed by this presentation because it will be a 10-minute presentation about very, very, very general feature about a very, very complex issue. So if you have some question, I will be happy in the final part of the meeting or whenever it will be possible to give you some answer or specification that you need. So let's start with the first. So the general objective of CSRD was to amend another directive that was called NFRD that come from 2019 inside of the framework of the Green New Deal. The specific object of the CSR of this directive was to have more companies more responsible for the impact on people and environment, to have a greater clarity and harmonization of reporting requirements, the publication of relevant, comparable, and verified information, to have an easier search for information, and to increase investment in sustainable enterprise. This was the objective when the European community decided to switch from NFRD directive to CSRD. This slide briefly explain the main changes between the NFRD to CSRD. Briefly, we can say that the main changes was to impact to a largest number of enterprises because the NFRD effective, the estimation was about the large public interest in the entities that was a very small part in the European framework of companies. To have a detailed information relevant to all the sustainability issues, while before this element were more strictly to apply the double relevance of materiality approach, and where before only the materiality approach was applied, to have, and this is one of the main impact new aspect, to have a principle that was developed by EFRAG, European Principle for Reporting, that was published shortly after the publication of the communication, to have a verification of information after the publication of data, to transform all the data in a digital format, as happened for the financial report today, and to have those data all in the public domain. So this was the official legislation act that apply for this change. I have only here put the Italian situation that when the CSRD was incorporated in the Italian law in September 10, 2024, with an official act. So this is the main feature, as you can see, and I have already said something about those features that changed from NFRD to CSRD. Sorry again. So this is a slide that, as Giacomo said, it is now an historical slide because this is the situation that it was possible to describe when the CSRD directive was issued. So when the CSRD came out, this was the limit of the CSRD. So it should be applied from the fiscal year to 2024, so in 2025, so now, from the largest enterprise, in the next year to other larger enterprise, and in 2027 to the least as me, excluding micro enterprise. This was the historical framework of the CSRD. Now this situation is deeply changed, and Giacomo explained how. I only to say that from it was estimated that this CSRD feature will impact 500,000 companies in the continent, in Europe. Now, with the omnibus package, it is supposed that those companies that will be immediately affected will be only 1,000. So this is a heavy change of the impact of the CSRD directive and the SRD's requirement that was linked to the directive. Let me spend some brief time about this concept that was one of the most important issue that was introduced with the CSRD directive, and was the concept of double materiality. If someone of you have some frequentation, some practice with the concept of reporting before 2022, maybe you have known at least one time the concept of materiality. So when you report in the field of social or environmental reporting, you have to detect what are the issues that was materiality important for your company and for your business. Well, with the sustainability, with the CSRD directive, the concept was explained to not only the impact outside the company, but from the impact inside the company, from the financial point of view. So the double materiality has a double perspective, an inside-out perspective, the impact outside the company, and an inside perspective, the outside-in perspective. What is the perspective? So what is the impact from the financial point of view, that not taking in consideration risk, opportunity on about sustainability realized on the company. So this is a very, very peculiar point of the directive that is still maintained with the omnibus package, but is changed again the framework of company that was impacted directly by the double materiality framework. So in the original feature of the CRC, there is some company that was not obligated to fulfill with the with the directive issues, and this is a brief summary of what could happen. But one of the other important issue, one of the important element I would like to underline you, it is the content of the security level and the attestation of compliance that was linked it was enforced, sorry, in the directive, and was about the fact that at the end of the framework you have to assure that the data that was in the report was correct. And that was an obligation of that is very, very peculiar in this in the CSRD directive, and is also regulated by the CSRD directive itself, and at the national level, every every European state have issued a peculiar legislation in which it is detected what are the persons and the companies that could issue some kind of assurance. When CSRD directive came out, the time frame is that starting from the beginning, the level of assurance was a limited one. I'm sorry, this is a very technical aspect, but limited safety level, it means in short words that the auditor that came in the company issue a declaration in which he or she said that what he or she find is do not have any reason to not be in compliance with the CSRD directive. In a reasonable level of safety, it is not a negation, but is an affirmation. So I affirm there is no that the report is in compliance. So it could be a simple or quite easy difference, but is a totally different approach, because the second one it implies that For the second one, you need to be very sure that what you are, the declaration is totally true, and so since you have to take care of very large amounts of data that is limited safety level. Again, this is one of the issues that was outdated in the omnibus package, since the reasonable level of safety at the moment was cleared and remain only the limited safety level as the only one that the auditor or that have to release at the end of the work. As I said before, the person that can release such kind of assurance was an independent reviewer. Each state has decided different what are the competence and the level of person that have to be that can release some kind of assurance. So in Italy, for example, there is a particular it was decided that only legal revisor can issue those kind of assurance. In other countries, it's not the same. For example, as long as I know, in France and in Spain is different. But in Italy, only legal revisor, so the one that release competent that review the financial statement of the company can also release statement about sustainability reporting. The last one important issue of the CSRD is that all this data must be in the public domain. So you are or in the website of the company, or where there is a proper legislation or in the national context in other places or in other situation. So the point was comparability, have the possibility to compare all the data, the assurance of the data, and finally data in the public domain. This is a very short view about the CSRD. Now coming to the second part of my speech, I would like to say something about the ESRS principle. There are the second part of the CSRD directive. So to reach the goals of the CSRD directive, European Commission decide to address to EFRAG the projecting of some principles that was called European Standards for Sustainability Reporting. ESRS was the acronym that company may use to report all the data that CSRD directive requires. Shortly, we can say yes, ESRs are very complex document you can find on the website of the EFRAG that was freely to download, and you can take a look on it. And are very complex document, very complete document. So as I said before, for some one of you can be not longer happy about my presentation, because it's a very complex argument. So I give you only the general plot of these standards. There are three kind of ESRS document. ESRS 1 and 2, there are cross-cutting standards, topical standards that are related to three main aspects: environment, social, and governance. And finally, the sector-specific standards that at the moment have no longer been issued by EFRAG, because the setting of the standard is now stopping after omnibus package came out. So the sector-specific standard are on the way, but at the moment is not on the agenda. So generally speaking, ESR 1 describes the general architecture of ESR's principles. So is a description. There is no indicator. Is a description, definition, and so on. And you can understand some important issues like double materiality, IRO, impact, risk, opportunity, and so on. ESR2 detailed the disclosure requirements. So what every company needs to prepare a sustainability statement, and this kind of standard applied to all set of company independently of the double materiality results. Topical standard is devoted to three main aspects. Environment, it is the most wide and developed issue. Social and governance. The topical standards are broken down into specific themes, subthemes, and in some cases sub-themes. So this is the general plot of the ESRs. So you can see ESRs 1 and 2 are the general requirement, general disclosure. Then you can find the standard about environment that was with the letter E, E1, E2, E3, etc. Then one, the social one with the letter S, S1, S2, S3, S4, and finally the governance that was with the letter G. The general requirement,
Massimo?
yes?
Sorry to interrupt. We are running short of time, so if we can summarize in a few minutes.
I am at the end. I have just 2 slides.
Thank you, Massimo.
No, thank you. I apologize. So go again a general a general view of the topics, and you can see here in a more detailed way. Again, if you want, you can go down to the EFRAG website, and all the standard will be detailedly described. Finally, my time has ended. I don't have the time to go deep in the concept of double materiality. In this document that it was linked here in the slide, you can find a very, very deeply and complete discussion about the double materiality concept that was developed by EFRAG. And so you can find many of the answers maybe you can rise from this presentation. Thank you. Sorry again for being so long.
Thank you, Massimo. Thank you.
Thank you, Massimo, as well. And so I'll just be sharing my presentation, and you should be able to see it and see it in presentation mode. Can you confirm, Christina?
Yes.
Good. So let's try to quick dive in the CSRD and standardization relations. So let's move directly to the omnibus package. And thank you very much, Massimo, for having introduced how the CSRD works and the ESRS are applied. So you've listened to how CSRD and ESRS work. Now forget all about this, because omnibus package kicked in. It's actually a proposal. It was proposed by the EC on the 26th of February 2025. And so it is not yet in place, but of course there is a high corroboration of the hypothesis that this proposal is going to be accepted. It has to get through the Parliament and the EU Council, but anyway, it's going to change a lot if approved. So let's see how the changes that Massimo described during the presentations are actually being implemented, and I'll summarize them during this presentation in this very slide. So first of all, let's look at the thresholds. Massimo mentioned them. With the previous CSRD requirements, the thresholds were three, and the enterprises had to apply 2 out of 3 thresholds to be actually part of the scope of CSRD. So those enterprises that were not respecting 2 out of 3 of those thresholds were not going to be anyway in the scope of the CSRD. And those thresholds were to have more than 250 employees, 50 million more of turnover, and more than 25 million balance sheet. Now, the balance sheet and the turnover remained the same, but it changed also the relation between the thresholds, because the employee threshold became mandatory, basically. So it's not 2 out of 3 anymore. Is at least the employee threshold and then the others. And also the employee threshold changed, so it's not anymore more than 250 employees to be actually envisaged by the CSRD obligations. It's actually 1,000 employees. So that cuts off at least 80% of the companies that were previously part of CSRD scope. Again, the omnibus package is trying also to align the CSRD to CS3BBS and EU taxonomy. So it is affecting three pieces of legislation, and we're looking only at the CSRD. And in CS3BBS, we do have a different scope, and so a smaller amount of enterprises involved. And this is happening also to the proposal of modification of CSRD. So if the package is accepted, 80% of companies will be removed from the CSRD scope. That's huge. Also, the listed SMEs that were part of the scope in the CSRD will be fully exempted. In addition to that, the sector-specific standards that Massimo mentioned, as he said, will be no longer introduced anymore, while there was actually planned for EFRAG, and EFRAG was working on the drafting of the sector-specific standards. Also, an additional element, just to give you the impact and the level of modification that the package is introducing. The limited assurance is the only assurance that will be there anymore. So reasonable assurance will be removed, and then we'll dive into the difference between the two again. Massimo mentioned that already, but we'll address it again. It's a huge change as well. And also the deadlines are going to change as well. So let's see the provisional proposal of changes of the deadlines. If the omnibus package is approved, let's say, the parts in yellow, orange, and red will apply. So for the financial year of 2025, there was a deadline for the large EU undertakings. If the omnibus package is going to be approved, we've seen that the threshold is going to change, but also the deadline is going to change. So it's not linked to the 2025 anymore. It's a +2 years deadline. So we just moved to 2027. And if the package is approved, also small, medium-sized enterprises are not are not linked to any binding requirement anymore. It's just a voluntary light template that will be provided by EFRAG. We still don't have it right now because it's a new feature from the omnibus package. So the deadline on 2026 is just gone. And then the only deadline that remains is for the third country undertakings, non-EU companies. Then in that case, there will be no change. So this change, if approved, of course, again, let's say it's a proposal. If approved, it will be impacting very much how this initial CSRD was actually thought and envisaged and designed. So let's get to the final question, the main question. If the CSRD reporting architecture is being downsized and we do not know yet what will be the final list of ESRS and data points, which are the indicators that Massimo mentioned, what could enterprises, therefore you, that are willing to implement sustainability reporting and practices do? Very simple. Use the existing standards. So let's dive into standardization and how it works. But again, I'll try to be very clear on the definitions, because we have to clear that out from the very beginning. We've been using a lot and we've been hearing a lot the term standard. Let's get from the terminology what a standard is. And in this case, the EU Regulation 1025 2012 helps us very much. In this case, we do have a definition, a clear definition of standards. For the EU Regulation 1025, standards are only those documents, technical specifications that are adopted by a recognized standardization body. That's it. Recognized standardization body, and we'll see what that means. It means UNI, means CEN, it means ISO, it means DIN. It doesn't mean all those other documents that are called standard, but they are actually proprietary schemes. They're documents that come from associations, organizations, enterprises. They became standards. They're called standards, but they're not proper standards. They're not EU Regulation 1025 compliant standards. So let's have a look at the standardization bodies. We do have many at national level. You can see UNI for Italy, BSI for the UK, AFNOR for France, DIN for Germany, UNE for Spain, and so on. Then we have the European standardization body, CEN, CENELEC, and ETSI. CEN for, let's say, 80% of standardization activities, CENELEC for the electrotechnical area, and ETSI for the telecommunication. And this split of area is also this the division of the areas is also mirrored at international level. At ISO is the, let's say, the standardization body that is addressing 80% of the activity international level, IEC for the electrotechnical area, and ITU for the telecommunication area. And having a look at CEN, CEN is the Comité Européen de Normalisation, which is the European standardization body, and you can look at the membership. It is quite different from the EU membership. It's actually broader. We have UK, Iceland, Norway, Turkey as well in the membership. Let's have a look at the downstream process, because we've been addressing standards. So once these standards are published, what happens next? That very much depends on what's in the standards. If the standards have requirements, which means they have a shall, not a should, which is a recommendation, but a shall, then those requirements can be used for conformity assessment purposes, even for third-party conformity assessment purposes, aka certification. Now, we know that audits are different. It could be first, second, and third-party audit. A first-party audit, it's a self-assessment. A second-party audit, where an external provider is auditing my organization, my product, my service, but there's still a commercial or at least institutional relation with them. And then a third-party audit that's impartial, that's a certification, and that could be also verified. It is performed by certification bodies or conformity assessment bodies, CABs, CABs, and it could be also verified and controlled by an accreditation body. So there's the accreditation. The accreditation body is controlling the controller, basically. So there's an additional statute of guarantee and security. Now, we've said we referred to the term standard. We clarified the regulation 1025 implications, and we've seen what the proper standards are. Then there are other schemes. We're referring now just to the corporate social responsibility framework. There are other schemes that can be used. There are proprietary schemes, but they are called standards. They're not regulation 1025 to 2012 standards, but still they can be used. And you can see some of them from the GRI to the IFRS to the SASB, to the B Corp certification, which is, again, it's a private certification. It's not a regulation 1025 compliance certification. And normally European Commission cannot issue a mandate to a private certification, but the mandate that the European Commission issues usually is to CEN, to the Comité Européen de Normalisation, or to CENELEC. In that case, the technical bodies in CEN or CENELEC draft the standards. They are envisaged and they're designed to be cited in the official journal of the EU. That doesn't happen for private proprietary schemes. Nonetheless, there's an hybrid product or hybrid deliverable, which are the ESRS. ESRS come from EFRAG. They've been issued and designed by EFRAG. EFRAG is a private entity, still related to the EU, but they got a mandate from the European Commission, which is quite strange. Usually the mandate goes to CEN or CENELEC or ETSI, not to a private entity, but still, EFRAG got the mandate, and so they drafted those that could be called standards, which are the ESRS that have been described by Massimo. Let's get also to the limited and reasonable assurance. I'll dive in again. I have 2 minutes. Okay.
Sorry.
So
yes.
Yeah, just to briefly address it, the considering in the CSRD number 61, 62, and 63 clarify that member states could also add a level of assurance to what is already envisaged. So in the CSRD, only statutory auditors and audit firms can perform assurance, which was envisaged and designed as limited assurance, as described by Massimo, by 2026. But and then by 2028, it was meant to be reasonable assurance. But we've seen that with the omnibus package, that is gone. At a national level, member states, and that is part of the CSRD. There is a considering saying that member states can do this. Member state can add to the limited assurance and reasonable assurance mechanism by the statutory auditors and audit firms. They can add the third-party conformity assessment, aka certification. That's where standardization kicks in. That's where standards can be useful and come in handy, especially considering that the omnibus package is eliminating the reasonable assurance and downsizing the limited assurance. The standards could be used in this case if your national member state decides to actually allow that, to allow the third-party conformity assessment. What standards could be used under Regulation 1025 and be compliant to the ESRS data points, even if not initially mentioned in the CSRD, but if applied with the certification option, then they could be applied at national level? Well, there's a list. Every national member state is drafting a national standardization body is drafting a document like this one, but you can find this document, which is a SEN document. I've also put the link, and we'll put the link in chat. That's a document that is actually putting together the ESRS and the data points from the ESRS and the existing standards from standardization. We're talking about proper standards. Okay, that's it. I think we've stayed in the minutes. Thank you very much for the time, and we'll be here for any question. Thank you, Christina. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Giacomo. Thanks a lot. Thank you also to Massimo also for your passion on these topics. I would now give the floor to Sofia, so we can now dive into how the research projects can support the CSRD. Thank you, Sofia.
Hello, Christina. I'm going to share my presentation.
Thank you.
Okay. Let me know if you see in perfect full screen mode.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, okay, perfect. So after we have now listened to Giacomo and to Massimo, they have presented a vision of the CSRD more related to the specificities of the reporting and how the standardization have been done. However, this presentation is intended to have a more practical point of view and more related to the implementation of methodologies. So I am starting with a little bit of background, but more related to the part of sustainability. So I am starting with the Paris Agreement. This Paris Agreement was approved in 2016, and already in this treaty, the inclusion of greenhouse emissions was correlated with the finance flows and the finance reporting. Altogether with the Paris Agreement, the biological diversity and union policies led to the creation of the 2030 Agenda, which is the core of the Sustainable Development Goals. These SDGs were needed to be fulfilled. So in order to fulfill some of their activities, the Union created in 2018 the Action Plan for Financial Sustainable Growth, which includes measures related to sustainable investment and financial risk. However, in order to further the implementation of some of these measures, in 2018 appears the regulation that you have here in the bottom of the slide, which provided sustainable indicators and technical criteria that apply for the financial market. 1 year later, and in order to enhance the availability and quality of this, the consistency of these ESG requirements, the European Union decided to correlate this finance regulation with aspects of sustainability, creating specific technical criteria. And this has been collected inside what is called the EU taxonomy regulation. However, what they say, a pillar is missing here because we have financial reporting and also sustainability, but not apply for companies, which is the Corporate Sustainability Directive, which is the one that we are talking about today. So this directive can be applied to different kinds of sectors of companies and includes the reporting of different sustainability matters. Some of them are included here in the slide. You have 9 here, and I can highlight now resilience of businesses, time-bound targets, of the identification of risk, but there are more. In order to support the reporting of this CSRD directive, there are different delegated acts to supplement how this reporting should be done. here you have all of them, all of this legislation that have been cited inside the own directive. Among them, I need to highlight some related to greenhouse gas emissions, to climate neutrality, and also to life cycle environmental performance. But the one that we are talking to focus today is the EU taxonomy, or the regulation 2020/852. So, in order to correlate the CSRD with the EU taxonomy, we need to know which factors we need to analyze. The TSRD are analyzing the governance factors like risk management, political activities, quality of relationship with customers, or business ethics, and also analyzing environmental factors like climate change, use of marine resources, biodiversity, pollution, circular economy, and among the social and human rights factors, we have also equal treatment, health, working conditions, and respect for human rights. So I want you to take a look now at the environmental factors. If you sit close to them, you can see now that they are the same objectives of the EU taxonomy. So the CSRD and the EU taxonomy are somehow correlated. So the EU taxonomy is regulated and connected to other delegated acts. These delegated acts, what they are having is to correlate all the technical criteria. Why are we needing that criteria? Why are we needing it? Because we need to know if the sum of these objectives has been fulfilling a substantial contribution to the environment. So apart from this, there are other delegated regulations in order to show how this information should be disclosed to the public. So how is the EU taxonomy working right now? So I am going pardon to a more practical pathway. So you have your company, so you need to select which is the sector of your company and what are the activities related to the company that are covered right now at the EU taxonomy. So you select the sector and you select the activity. The next step would be to have the technical criteria, collect all the technical criteria that applies to you. So you evaluate that criteria and you know if you are aligned or not with EU taxonomy. It means that you are having a good position or a good quality regarding to your requirements. And the last step that I'm going to talk about today is the check of this technical criterion in order to know if you have, like, imagine you have a contribution to climate change and you're really good at climate change, but then you are not good for circular economy. So in order to have a good contribution to the taxonomy, you need to verify that you are good in one of the objectives, but you are not harming the other ones. So the last two stages are related more to disclosure and to the selection of criteria that are not already inside the EU taxonomy, but the company can include it. So we're going step by step. So regarding to, for example, if we select as objective climate change, we can select different sectors. Let's choose forestry. So for forestry, we have different 4 activities here: forestation, conservation forestry, forest management, and rehabilitation and restoration. So if we're going to forest management, for example, we can have different contributing criteria. Here you have 2, but there are many, many more, and you can consult it in the regulations. So, for example, here you have carbon exhaust sinks and the analysis of the carbon footprint. So this is, I previously mentioned some of it, but if we can enter here a little bit more. So you select this criteria and you say you have a good contribution to climate change. The next step would be, you are here, so you have a good contribution to here. And then you say, okay, but in order to know if I am good or I'm complying with the EU taxonomy, I need to know if all the rest of the criteria does not imply a significant harm to the environment. If you say yes to all of them, then you're aligned with the EU taxonomy. But if you say no, like here in the case I put here for conservation forestry, you would be not aligned, which means that you cannot be reported inside the rules of the EU taxonomy. So the EU taxonomy is providing technical criteria, right? But there are many gaps. For example, you have this criteria, but you don't have a methodology right now to measure that criteria. This is a problem because we don't know if this measurement could be qualitative, quantitative, and how to do it. Right now, the companies are at the step of selecting their technical criteria, their sector, and their activities. So here we can create a connection, for example, with the STAR4BBS project. This project is trying to provide requirements and criteria, but for certification schemes. And so in that case, we can select LCA and non-LCA indicators in order to try to analyze or to assess these requirements or these technical criteria for the EU taxonomy. So when you in the STAR4BBS, what has been done is identification of selection of LCA indicators included in the three pillars of sustainability: environmental, social, and economic, and taking into account different minimum, let's say, quality requirements like operability, relevance, robustness, and the prevention of overlaps between the content of indicators. So the indicators were classified in different key areas. As you can see here, almost all of the key areas are quite similar to the EU taxonomy, except for the hazardous substances, which in the future could be also included also in the EU taxonomy to control like how the companies are being reported in terms of chemicals. So here you have, for example, in this table, an example. You have the different key areas, but also the indicators have been subdivided in sub-areas, and then the name of the indicator, the metrics, and the units on which they can be reported the value. So it means that in this case, the LCA indicators are able to provide a quantitative assessment. But there are also non-LCA indicators. They can be collected from monitoring systems, labels and certification schemes, and reports and papers. Here you have all the information that has been taken into account inside the project. So all these indicators, again, were organized in different key areas and categorized in pillars and principles. So here you have a more divided structure, but for two examples, biodiversity and for climate change. You have the principle, the criteria for both of them, and then the indicator. So for example, let's take climate change, because we have been using climate change as example in the EU taxonomy, like a requirement of mitigate mitigate emissions and to take into account the strategies to prevent them. So here we have, for example, the two examples, the LCA indicator and the non-LCA indicator, connected to one of the criteria of the EU taxonomy, and this would be applied for the forest management activity. So, if we want to use the CSRD directive and the EU taxonomy, which means the EU taxonomy would be supportive in this case to report information through the CSRD directive. And for the bio-based sector, what we need to do is first to select all the sectors that applies to our company. Then select the activities, and finally, when the activity has been selected, the technical criteria. However, these technical criteria, there's not a methodology to evaluate them right now, so we have taken an example how the STAR4BBS could support the evaluation of this criteria. So after doing that, and this is a step that has not been presented before, the CSRD could provide the activities aligned with your taxonomy and then report all the information as CAPEX and OPEX. So there would be a connection between financial and sustainability activities. This would be all from my side, so I will wait for your questions. Thank you for your attention.
Thanks a lot, Sofia. Thank you. As I have written in the chat, feel free to drop your questions in the chat. We will try to answer either during this event or afterwards also by email. Thanks a lot, Sofia. Thank you also for staying in the time frame. Now I will leave the stage to Rita from Metropolia University for the experience of Engage for Bio project. Thank you, Rita.
Hello, everyone. My name is Riitta Lehtinen. I come from Metropolia University of Applied Sciences from Helsinki, Finland. And I have been participating in this Engage for Bio project for last years. And my presentation is how to educate life cycle thinking, and subtopic somehow life cycle assessment for sustainable bioproduct innovation. I have divided this presentation into five sectors. First, I'll start those skills which we need for the sustainable development and, of course, innovations. Then I will describe the course we have created in this Engage for Bio project as a training for engineers working in chemical industry or mechanical industry and so on. And then there will be a little bit deeper explanation about the life cycle thinking and assessment and about the future of packaging, because the topic of this Finnish hub in this Engage for Bio project has been packaging. So circular economy standard will be expressed a little bit, and then I try to summarize somehow what kind of skills are needed for these. So starting from this Green Comp, European Sustainability Competence Framework, and of course already earlier before this came, there has been this United Nations, UNESCO's key competencies for sustainable development. So there are thought about what has to be changed to make this transition to take more into account all kinds of sustainability aspects. So this European Green Comp framework defines the essential sustainability competencies to be the objective is to empower citizens for the green transition and a sustainable future. And it was developed in 2022, and it is meant to in education at all levels. So the 4 competence areas of this Green Comp are embodying sustainability values, embracing complexity in sustainability, envisioning sustainable future, and acting for sustainability. And under all these 4 areas, there are 3 competencies. And here are those, first of these 2 first. Embodying sustainability values contains valuing sustainability, somehow to reflect the personal values, identify and explain how values vary among people and also over time, supporting fairness and promoting nature. Embracing complexity in sustainability contains this systems thinking, and critical thinking and problem framing. And there are more detailed description in these my slides about what does this all mean. And is envisioning sustainable future. Perhaps this is a little bit new one from the older key competencies mentioned, so that we teachers in education should encourage our students to somehow visualize the future, what it could be or what it should be, and try to find ways to work for those goals. So there is futures literacy, adaptability, exploratory thinking. And the 4th one is acting for sustainability. So to encourage students for political agency, to understand the political systems, identify political responsibility, and work in that. And very much is understood that collaborative work together with others and also work together with other disciplines. So people from different backgrounds, we have very big challenges which need different kind of skills to come together to solve these problems. And then also discourage this individual identify to understand each one's own potential and possibilities to be part of this change which is needed. So in this our course about packaging, the name of the course is The Life Cycle of Sustainable Packaging. And we with the cooperation of colleagues from technical area, from business and design, came together and wanted to create a course so that it covers the whole supply chain or area for packages. So the course is there are those. First, there's of course this introduction part, but then there are these seven sections starting from the life cycle assessment and life cycle thinking. So about the theoretical background and those things, then supply chain, packaging design process, packaging regulations, packaging materials, sorting, recycling and reuse. And finally, this circular economy and future of packaging. And now I will explain a little bit. Okay, still about this course. It is a MOOC version. It's in the learning platform. We are using Moodle platform, and the material is there independently studied, and there are material delivered in the PDF format, and there are text, pictures and links to videos, and there is also links to additional material to deepen the understanding. And in each section there are questionnaires to somehow reflect, have you understood the key points when learning this? So now about the life cycle assessment and life cycle thinking, how we teach our students about this. And we, of course, our target is set in these learning outcomes. The idea is that students, of course, understand the 3 dimensions of sustainable development and understand also those area pillars as a systemic whole and can argue the interdependencies between them. And they are able to look at the environmental impacts of human activities. And then, of course, we start from this Agenda 2030 and all those targets that this is meant to aim peace and prosperity for people and the planet. This is a starting point. And then about the life cycle assessment and why life cycle assessment can be used as a tool. It is a good tool to solve that problem, that you don't pick only one problem and solve it and forget the others. The main learning thing in this life cycle assessment is that try you can figure out the big picture and understand that there are different areas affecting. In this course, we give instructions for the students to make the life cycle analysis. I don't go deeper into the ISO standard about this and how it is explained there. So that is done in this course. And then we open the thinking so that we don't teach only the environmental aspects, but when we take into account also the social life cycle assessment and life cycle costing, we can start to discuss about life cycle thinking, the whole thing. But the main target is that you understand the big system. For example, in this packaging system, that there are so many players when we want to make a package and deliver our goods to customers. So the package goes through very different places, areas, and so on, and what is happening there. The impacts of all life cycle stages need to be considered comprehensively by citizens, companies, and governments when they make decisions on consumption and production patterns, policies, and management strategies. This is the message that when we in companies we start to do things, it's good to have the big picture, understand how these all are somehow related to each other. So at the macro level, life cycle approaches avoid shifting problems from one life cycle stage to another, from one geographic area to another, and from one environmental medium, for example, air quality, to another, for example, water or land. So that's the importance to get the big picture. At the micro level, they enable individuals, for example, product designers, service providers, government agents, to make choices for the longer term and with consideration of all environmental media, air, water, land. And in that last part in our course, this life cycle of sustainable packaging is this future of packaging. And
Rita, sorry to interrupt you. Can we shorten in a few minutes?
Yes, I try to do so.
Thank you. Sorry to be the backup.
Yeah. And then there is a learning objectives also always set when we start, and here is described the standard, new ISO standard from about circular economy start from last year. This is the head of it. Main principles are explained, and then there in the course there is this examples of organizations how to consider these solutions, and is also the rethinking how we could or should rethink packages. And the learning outcomes from this LCA from the perspective of sustainable innovations is this, that when looking at the big picture, we try to encourage students learn system thinking. Always question that what is the bigger system we are in. And also, of course, critical thinking, assessment of the necessity of the product or service, and analyze and the critical examination of the prevailing practices, and also this foresight competence and future thinkings, and how it should be. It's done in this way nowadays. What could it be, or how could it be better? Thank you. This was my presentation.
Thanks a lot. Thank you, Rita, and sorry for shortening you the last part.
Not at all.
Now we are going to the close of the event. So I would leave the floor to Dr. Luana Ladu for the last part of this event with the discussion with the experts in the field. Thank you, Luana. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Christina, and a big thanks to all the 4 presenters for the very nice presentations today. So as we have seen, we have covered different aspects of the CSRD and what changes may come if the omnibus package will be approved. We also have explored how taxonomy regulation, our research can support taxonomy regulation implementation, especially for the bio-based companies in compliance with these frameworks, also addressing the gaps in key indicators and how projects can support providing metrics. And finally, we have seen also the role of the developing competence that is very, very important in the evolving landscape, especially life cycle perspective and all the courses that were prepared also in this interesting research project. And now, as per program, we would like to open the floor for some questions. So maybe I take this opportunity to ask the participant to ask any questions to the speakers. You can just unmute yourself and ask the question. If there are questions, or you can also write it in the chat. If there is any question from your side. Otherwise, if there's no question, we can start a discussion with other experts that we invited today. So first of all, I will introduce the experts. So we have Laura Vairien. She's a program manager in environmental transparency team at ECOS. And then we have Kai Seger, is an expert in policy and strategy for the circular economy at Nova Institute. And then we have also our speakers from today, Jacopo, Massimo, and Rita, that may also join this discussion. So maybe I will start with Laura, and we'll go back to the certification landscape. And maybe my question to you will be, what role can voluntary sustainability certifications play in supporting companies' report according to the CSRD directive? Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Luana, and nice to be here. Just really quickly, so ECOS is the abbreviation of Environmental Coalition on Standards, and we work on making sure that EU policy and standards are as environmentally friendly as possible. But to answer your question, Luana, I mean, there's a lot of ways certifications can help companies report based on the CSRD. Most of them are a bit indirect, of course. Well, first of all, there's the adhering to certifications can help create a sort of data infrastructure that around sustainability data that a lot of organizations don't necessarily have, especially smaller organizations. It can help collect data, managing data, understanding it, quality assuring it, using it, just kind of getting the practice in, so to say, of using sustainability data. Then certification schemes or trying to comply with those requirements can also help organizations identify performance gaps and understand what are the so-called material or key sustainability topics for their industry and for their own operations, because this sort of analysis is required by the standards in any case, and then be able to talk about them better in the sort of narrative requirements of the sustainable reporting standards. Because it is quite hard to report and talk about something you have never considered. So these certifications kind of point you towards key topics that are useful for your organization. And then depending on the certification, they might offer some training and improvement support, which of course indirectly supports the sustainability team or people engaging with the standards to just understand these topics better and thus being able to report on them better. So a lot of this is kind of indirect impacts. And of course, these sort of trainings can help, and also just adhering to these certification requirements can help just improve sustainability performance, which of course is a net benefit. And there's also the opportunity of these certification schemes, sometimes creating these sort of peer learning platforms, so you can talk with other organizations in your sector who who are working on similar things. So that can also be a source of valuable support, especially in times where the requirements can be a bit difficult to meet or a bit unclear, especially with the omnibus.
Thank you, Laura. So we see different ways of supporting the company's certifications. And of course, for the company, maybe it's also difficult to choose which certification scheme to select, maybe, but this is also something that I don't know if somebody else wants to answer something to contribute on these questions. Otherwise, I would like to ask maybe Kai from Nova, also talking about certification schemes, maybe and the link to the CSRD. Maybe how can the support like foster stakeholder engagement? Maybe something about this important topic of the stakeholder engagement. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Luana. So also as an introduction to things, as Nova, we are currently engaged both with STAR4BBS and another project called 3Co, which is looking also at labeling and claims, but more on a B2C perspective, so business to consumer, not so much B2B as it is in STAR4BBS. And in both, we actually see a potential from the CSRD side that this could actually foster stakeholder engagement. So in both cases, it's a requirement, it's a reporting requirement, a data point in the CSRD and ESRS to actually report on how you approach your stakeholders, both from business partners, but also from affected communities, to your own workforce, to the workforce beyond your own capacities. So there is a very strong stakeholder engagement. And if you're looking at the certification labeling standards, this is not always included as much. This is not always a mandatory and strong component, but it's something where we know from research that it actually strengthens your labels. So if you do stakeholder engagement, you will have a more robust label. You have higher levels of transparency and higher levels of trust. So it can increase not just the strength of your label as such, but also the uptake, the trust in your label, and so on. And we do believe that if you have this in mind, if you include this both in the labeling, you will also be able to report it through the CSRD. And we also think that the CSRD, as it applies to companies, they will develop a stronger interest in actually including this in labels, or will be more willing to pursue this as part of the labeling and certification process. So we see a potential synergy there. We still have to see whether it materializes, but it's definitely a nice possibility to extend the entire stakeholder engagement, stakeholder involvement process in both labeling and reporting.
Thank you, Kai. So very interesting to see how this can support more transparency, because this is what we are looking for. Also more substantiation, of course, of the claims from company, for example. And I don't know if some other participants would like to add something on this, also from the public. Feel free to answer any question to the speakers. Otherwise, I would like to ask Rita, maybe just going back to the skill developments and see, what do you think, which skills are missing for the industry to comply with this directive?
Of course, that's a difficult question in a way, but I think that this system thinking and looking for a future or imagining what we want to be is important also in companies. The change from linear economy to a circular one somehow addresses that we should think about what we really want to be, not be so tightly fixed to those habits and practices and things we are having now, because we need the change. So what is the change? What is to be changed? There are so much, many things to be taken into account that I think that it keeps us very much tied to these practicalities nowadays. But the question is that we should do something different, because our living is not sustainable at the moment. So something has to be changed. So think, what is it? And look at the big picture and be proud in thinking those possibilities, what it might be. So very often we go also in so that we develop those habits we have nowadays. But other way around, it could be so that we look at the future, what it should be, and come back from that point and think that to get to that aim or target, we need to do this and this to find the way how it's done.
Thank you, Rita. So definitely we need like a systemic thinking, different actors involved and different interests should be covered there. And maybe now I'll go to a question to Giacomo or Massimo for the previous presentation. It may be something maybe linked to the standards in this case. So which role do you think standardization can play in supporting the CRD? And maybe you can give us some example from the Italian experience, because I know you've been involved a lot in these topics in Italy. Thank you.
Yeah, Massimo, if you want, I'll make a brief introduction, then you can mention the UNI 11919 standards since you've been working on that. Again, we're in a situation when it could be either a blessing in disguise for standardization. This is Cicero pro domo suo, clearly speaking. You're asking the winemaker if his wine is good, so I'm saying it's good. But again, now that the omnibus package is kicking in, and it will be discussed, but it could be affecting CSRD and the SRS and the standards and the data points and so on. It could be, for the standardization point of view, a blessing in disguise, because we do already have standards that are in place, they are used, they are known by the enterprises. Many of them refer to management system standards, which is a model that is very well known by the enterprises. So it could be a blessing in disguise for standardization, because we do have the tools and instruments to cover that gap that is going to be left out by the changes implemented by the omnibus package. So that's from my point of view. And I'll also address one info that I shared during my presentation, which was the brochure from Senelec on which standards could help the enterprises in actually be compliant to many of the data points of the SRS. I'll just share the link here, and then if you have any question, you can drop a question to us or to Sen. And to address also the second part of your question, well, yes, at UNI level, we're drafting standards that also somehow help building the bridge between standardization and CSRD and EFRAGs. And one of these is the UNI 11919 standard, but I'll leave the floor to Massimo to give you a brief description of the standard. Please, Massimo.
Yes, just a few words about this. In Italy, we have at the very end of the COVID period, we're starting to discuss on how to implement the best documents, in our opinion, that was developed at ISO level about the corporate social responsibility and sustainability, and that was ISO 26000. We're starting from the work of ISO 26000 and try to develop an application to Italy of the ISO 26000 general features, also using the experience of the documents and other documents that at national level we are developing, that was that was called praxis in Italian. And I know that at the Sun level, Giacomo, what is the word? Is
Practice is good. It's fine. It's fine that term.
It's a kind of pre-normative document. It's not a normative document, but it's a pre-normative document that tries to transform something that was not a norm or a standard in something that looks like. So we use those documents and then try to develop a local documents that was in compliance with the ISO 26000. It was a long and not easy work with the experts at national level of from all the stakeholders, and I agree with the person that spoke before me that stakeholder engagement was very, very important in this work. But another issue that I would like to underline is that we try to insert in this document one of the topics that was often not too much considered in about 26000, ISO 26000, and was the integrity and ethics framework. Because, for example, EFRAG was excellent technical document, very well developed, very deep. But in our opinion, a document like this lacks of the very reason because we have to use EFRAG, because we have to follow CSRD requirement, because it's right, because it's correct, because we need to do this. So ethical integrity framework are not too much considered in those standards, and we try to incorporate in 11.901 work these elements. And also we're trying to insert in this document another element that was the design-driven option to try to let company to design their approach according to their needs, according to the stakeholder need, and so that what we try to do. This work is on the field because we have part 1, part 2, and part 3 of this document that are different. Part 1 is still finished, and now we are finishing part 2, and maybe we're working on the third part of this document.
Thank you very much, Massimo and Giacomo. Unfortunately, there is not so much time left, so I will have to ask many other questions, but I will give back the floor to Cristina for closing this webinar. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Luana. Thank you to all the panelists and to all the people participating. We really appreciate that you spent this time with us. Just very final remarks. The slides presented today will be available on our STAR4BBS website, so have a look at it. And also, I wanted to inform you of the upcoming training that we are organizing with STAR4BBS project, which will be about the greenwashing legislation. I'm just sending you in the chat the link to register and verify information. It will be in 10 days almost. So feel free to register. We will be really happy to have you with us also in that occasion. So just thanks again a lot for your presentations, really insightful, and thank you for all the participants.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Have a nice day.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.